Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Sports Affiliation Thursday Checkdown, where there is no off season. Each week, we try to have talented guests come in to help give us advice on things, including tonight's show. We're going to be focusing on the draft. So I wanted to go ahead and introduce our guest, Brandon Lejeune. He is an expert on both Devy and on rookie drafts. And we're going to spend a lot of time later in the show diving into Brandon's top prospects for quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends. And hopefully we'll have time to even get a Devy question in there or two. But Brandon, appreciate you coming on the show, and looking forward to getting a chance to get to know more about you, as well as some of the insights you have on the draft. So how are you doing tonight, Brandon?
I'm doing great. I'm not sure I'm an expert. Let's just put it out there, but a fantasy enthusiast like the rest of us, doing this as a hobby. But yeah, it's rookie season, baby. I mean, this is what we've been waiting for, especially if you do play the Devy C2C format, which I'd like to dabble in as well. When you got guys already on your roster, the draft, it takes it to a whole new level. But we've been scouting these players for a while, and now it's ready to get our lists together and get prepared for our rookie drafts.
Oh, yeah, we are getting ready for those drafts, and especially those in Dynasty. We'll be focusing on the rookies coming in. So we're going to be talking a lot more about that a little later in the show. But again, we really want to get to know a little bit more about you. So why don't you tell us what your background is, where you live, and what you do outside of fantasy football?
I'm live outside of Philadelphia, so I'm a proud Super Bowl champion this year. So, which is yeah, it was a great season, and no better way to beat up Mahomes, let me tell you, than the way we dominated. It wasn't a squeaker. But I've been playing the fantasy football dynasty for a long time, and been playing Devy, which is really just scouting college players, getting prepared, early season for future rookies. And it's just been a great hobby for me. I think like one of my favorite jobs, I think, in the world would be to be a GM of a football team. So, right, we play fantasy and dynasty, and it's a lot of fun because you can kind of, decide on the players that you want to draft. And one of the things I really have come to like to do is scouting and making my own decisions on players that I'm going to draft versus, looking at other lists or stuff like that. And it's become a really good hobby. I got a YouTube page out there called the NFL Draft Big Boards. I spend a lot of time on my YouTube channel, like making film cut-ups, and I offer a database as well out there for people that want to, look at the future classes in Devy. I've got like the 2026 prospects already ranked. I got 2027 rookies ranked, and 2028 I've already started to accumulate them. So it's a good way to get ahead of the future. And outside of fantasy football, I love to fish. That's my gig. I'm rivers. I'm in back bays in the salt water. So I'm all over the place. But those are my hobbies. But I appreciate you guys having me on to talk some rookies and hopefully some Devy towards the end.
Awesome.
All right. So you mentioned when did you start playing? How long have you been in fantasy football?
I've been playing fantasy football for a long time. Probably
90s, early 90s.
Oh yeah, easily, yeah. So and then the dynasty came. It went in phases. You had your keeper league where you kept 3 guys, and then it was full dynasty. Then it was Devy. Then it's C2C where we're looking at high school players, and that's about as deep it can go. And it's just been fun, the whole thing. I just like the competition of it all. It's fun. I don't really take it that serious, but it's fun hobby nonetheless. That's why we're all sitting here on a Thursday night talking about it, because it's so much fun.
It is. And what types of leagues do you play in?
I have I only have 5 leagues that I play in. I used to be one of those people with 15 or 30, and I could not do it. In fact, I was to be honest, I was so miserable because I would open up a team and wouldn't even know anything about the team, and it made me a very bad owner by being in so many leagues. Like, you only have so much time. I run my own business. I do a lot of this YouTube stuff, and I can't have 15 lineups to set. So I'm in 5 leagues where I have 1 redraft. I have a flavor for just about everything, where I have a complete redraft. I've got a dynasty league and I got shallow Devy and a deeper Devy and 2 campus to Canton football leagues where we do 25 round freshman drafts coming out of high school into college. So wow. it's a lot of fun. I mean, and so yeah, I'm in all spectrums. I'm about as deep as getting into fantasy football as you possibly can.
How long have you been doing the NFL draft big board podcast?
I started out, it was called Devy to Dynasty Football Podcast. I'm on my 260th episode or 255th. So nice. I've been doing it for quite a long time. My podcast co-host, Jason DiRienzo, him and I met 5-6 years ago and just kind of hit it off. We both love to scout players. We're more scouting players than analytics. So what is Devy? It's actually Devy, Devy. And what Devy is it's just an abbreviation for developmental. It was just a term used where basically in Devy you're drafting college players and putting them on your taxi squads of your dynasty rosters. So you have them on your bench before they're even drafted. So our rookie drafts in a Devy league are somewhat diluted because a lot of players are already on people's rosters, which makes, I'll tell you, the NFL draft really fun when you already have a Marion Hampton sitting on your roster and you're like, come on, baby, just give me that landing spot I need, so it's the all coveted landing spot. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that does. One of the things, and again, you mentioned some of the podcasts you do, and I think you also do some web writing as well. What kind of got you into doing that? What led you to do content?
I just am a creative person, and I have just as much fun actually doing a lot of the imagery work for my YouTube page, coming up with my, the imagery that we're going to see later when you put my ranks up and stuff like that. It was a lot of fun. I just decided that I was the same. I was a typical person who would get lists from this website, and trust other people. And a lot of times found out that it wasn't, I just had this love for scouting and watching player film. It's like really a true passion because I wanted to scout these players for myself. Because I said, I want to make my own decision, not look at other people's lists. And, everyone has recommendations and stuff, but I just wanted to own my decisions a little more. And then I just started, the podcast, and then I started a YouTube page putting out film breakdowns. I actually started out doing highlight films where I would take a college player and just cut up their entire game. Running back might have 15 carries for 89 yards and 2 touchdowns, and just started a YouTube page. And then it started to get into analysis, and now I do all sorts of shows, mocks, and all sorts of good stuff.
So do you participate in Scott Fishbowl?
I do.
Do you, what about live? Have you been to a live event?
No, I don't. In fact, the Scott Fishbowl I participate in. I purchase the goods for the kids, which is obviously the most important thing. But I don't really get I don't really get too excited about the league itself. I'm in 5 leagues, and it's kind of too many already for me. So I'll do the draft and I'll participate, but I don't really actively. It's just not that important. But yeah, I've done it for probably 4 or 5 years now.
And another big event that happens, and a lot of people are excited about heading out to Canton, Ohio to go to the Fantasy Football Expo. Are you planning on going to there, and have you done that in the past?
I haven't, and unfortunately, when it is in August, is usually when we have a big family reunion at where my entire I've got a very large family, and there's one time a year we all get together, and it's always around that weekend, and that I'm not going to miss for this silly game that we play. As much as I'd love to go, probably I'm away from the house too much on fishing trips to say, hey, I'm going out to Canton for 3 days. So,
I know that feeling.
I prioritize my time.
I think we're there for 4 or 5 days. I think.
Yeah. I can't see myself ever doing that. So
yeah, I'm excited about the seeing the Football Hall of Fame for sure.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
let's see. So obviously we know Philadelphia is your favorite team. What are your thoughts on their draft? What do you think they're going to do in the draft?
Howie, I think the Eagles, I think they're going to address the lines. I think Howie Roseman is my kind of GM. He's my philosophy. You win in the trenches. That's how this game is won. And the teams that don't focus on the trenches compromises pretty much everything else, because it's going to not be able to protect your quarterback, or you're not going to be, where you're going to be able to get to the quarterback. So I think without a doubt, us losing one defensive tackle and one defensive end, he's going to definitely go back to the D line. That's his MO.
Yeah, he is also really sharp about, being like a year or two in advance of what he needs. And so he worked hard on defensive backs last year.
Mm-hmm.
Got not just one, but two really strong ones. I guess it was kind of a need, but I think he double tapped, and it just shows how smart of a GM. He goes out and gets the players he wants, even if it's in advance, or especially when it's in advance of his needs. He'll always have those players ready and waiting to add to his starting lineup when necessary. I love him as a GM.
Yeah, I think his philosophy is really to draft defense and trade for experienced offensive pieces. So I think it's a formula. You load up on defensive picks and offensive tackles and guards.
Yeah, kind of like AJ Brown and Saquon Barkley.
That's right. He went out and bought the proven talent. So
God, for sure.
Speaking of Saquon, I got to ask you, do you believe in the curse of 370 at all as far as fantasy football goes? And are you worried about Saquon's workload this year?
I may be a little ignorant, but is 370, what is that, rushing attempts?
Touches.
We won a Super Bowl, man. Listen, if he's good for 2 more years, this city loves Saquon Barkley. He's actually a better person than he is a player. And the fact that they gave him even more money and renegotiated the contract they just signed with him, he's such a humble guy. And the city has embraced him already, as he's going to be kind of like Travis Kelce is, or Jason Kelce is to this town. Saquon Barkley has endeared himself to Philly.
Yeah, and he's a great running back. And you're right. I think that if he's up there in front of me as a potential draft pick, I know I'm for sure grabbing him.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to kind of go into the some of your top prospects, but it'd be really useful for me, and I'm hoping the rest of the folks watching, if we could learn a little bit more about your process that you go through, and so if you could kind of give us your idea of the process you go through when you're projecting players and doing these rankings.
Well, let's just start with the positions, right? Like the quarterback, I really don't scout very much. It's very intricate with, the mechanics, and I didn't play the game. So to try and understand what the quarterback is looking at and stuff like that, I don't, really scout them. So I kind of lean on kind of what the natural buzz is on that. But running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends, that's where I love to scout. And I'm about space creation and movement skills of players, right? I think there's 2 things that are the most important thing really for running backs, wide receivers, and tight end. It's the ability to laterally move, and the athleticism and the physicality. Those are 3 things, specifically running backs. I have this thing on my podcast where I joke about sweet feet, right? Every running back needs to be able to laterally move with footwork, and then see the field, you have the vision, and to be able to adjust and have the athleticism to do that. And then really the physicality is something I lean on heavily when I scout players, because I think there's a lot of players that flash in college that do really good, but you can tell watching the film, the players that like to give contact and the ones that embrace for contact, especially from the running back position. So you got a combination of tough physical skills and the ability to laterally move, make guys miss. Elusiveness is another kind of word for that. And good burst and acceleration is important. Long speed, I think, is icing on the cake for a running back, right? But you got to be able to navigate the trenches. So for running backs, I look for movement skills, the ability to adjust. If you're running a gap scheme and you've got to pivot, can you actually physically do that and then lower the pads and take the hit? Wide receivers, it's all about space creation, right? Can you get away from your DB, whether that's defensive manipulation, movement skills, so route running obviously is really important, but just space creation. I've always had this thing in my mind, how, like when we draft a rookie, right, and they don't hit our dynasty roster, you have to ask yourself why. And I always think that maybe it's one of two things. Either they can't create space in practice, or they're just not physical enough for the game and the physicality of the game day in and day out, and the rigors of the game and taking hits and laying hits. So those are the two things that I really scout for, because that's how I believe if a player who's drafted in the 4th round doesn't get on the field, he's just not getting open in practice. It's plain and simple. And so that's what you try to project when you watch college players.
And if I could jump in just with a follow-up with that, and you've mentioned all 22, and I know through watching your podcast, you do show and review and show a lot of video. Do you have a balance between what you watch on video and perhaps statistics? Are there certain stats that you're more interested in than others? Maybe like missed tackles, as an example.
I think PFF Stats does a respectable job. There's a lot of people that criticize, what they bring to the table, but hey, man, it's all we got, right? Yards per carry and stuff. Like, I'm not so much a box score watcher. I tend not to lean towards analytics. There's a lot of people that like yards per route run and expected air yards and like all these fancy terms. But the reason I have a hard time like really buying into that is every player's environment is different, right? So it's really hard to say, okay, look at this elusive rating, but you're playing in the Pac-12 and versus the SEC. There's a big difference for tackling. I mean, like Caleb Johnson, for example, right? I mean, the guy broke off tons of big runs, but my God, the tackling on many of his games where he broke off 60, 70-yard runs or 50 chunk yards and stuff is just, the tackling is just horrible. But if he was playing in the SEC, it might not be the same. So I'm not much of an analytic guy. I watch the film. I watch the player's movement skills, his physical body, and his ability to move and adjust and burst and acceleration and pad level and just physicality. And that's kind of really what I lean. I just trust what my eyes tell me versus what numbers and spreadsheets do. I mean, it's really interesting how people do this and don't watch any film at all and run numbers and say, I like this guy because he fits into a percentage. But if the playing field was equal and everybody was playing in the same field, well, then maybe I would buy into the numbers more. But everyone's environment is different. Shitty offensive lines, bad passers, it's all across the board.
A lot of variables when it
a lot of variables
to the context and sample size.
Exactly.
Sample size throws a lot of stuff off, and so I like that. It's a lot of people don't realize that it's just a piece to the puzzle. Like, it's not something you want to lean on. You don't lean on any one thing. You got to put it all together, and it's analytics is just a piece. And I like your breakdown of trusting your eyes and what you see, and
sure, right.
So makes a lot
and
of
shit,
sense.
I'm wrong a lot too.
Of
I
course,
mean,
yeah.
we're all wrong at times, but
We're all wrong.
I think I'm more. The players I draft, I've always done well, so I guess I'm doing okay.
Yeah, so you trust, you know what I mean? I like it. You trust it. You have a process, you trust it, and
but the thing I like about it too, as a side note, is that if I pick a player and he bombs, I've got no one to blame but myself. Like, I don't look at other people's lists, and I don't, I just, and I like to live and die with my, with my beliefs. That's what makes it fun. Either way.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. And before we jump into the actual rankings, Devy is such a different, I mean, a lot of people are unfamiliar with Devy and haven't played it. Is there a different process you go through when evaluating and ranking or, discussing Devy players than you would use with rookie players?
Well, not really, because you're just a year out, right? So they're just going to be the following year's rookies. So the process is the same. And you're trying to identify kids early in their college careers if they have those skills that you scout and look for. And some are very evident. And some players don't. And there's some that look so good in college. Like, I mean, think about all of the running backs, right? Oh, this is the deep class. And I'm one to think that the class has got a little top heavy, but I think there's going to be a ton of Jags in this class that are going to get buried on depth charts that we're never going to see. And there's only so many spots to take. So just, 60 like running back spots, really, but that's just the fun of it all.
And yet, when you see people discussing some of the current running backs on certain teams, they're already, I guess, presenting the fear that there's so many running backs that are going to be coming out in the draft that that person's not safe, or maybe you shouldn't be holding on to that player, and it's a pretty big list of running backs that are currently on rosters that people are saying, well, gee, that person, they're risky.
We all have hopes and dreams.
Ramondre Stevenson, I think, is going to be all right. Everybody's worried about him.
Yeah, we fumbled a lot this year, and I think they're going to draft a running back. I just did a running back draft show that I'm putting out on the channel tomorrow, and I picked Dylan Sampson being selected, I think, in the 3rd round to the New England Patriots.
Nice.
Who I thought would be like a good kind of landing spot, with Ramondre being the bigger guy, and then you can kind of throw in Sampson, who was really nice at Tennessee, SEC player. So yeah,
love it. Fun. Okay, well, we'll go ahead and jump into the actual rankings, and so and I did throw them up onto a PowerPoint so that people would be able to see where you're putting certain players versus others. Why don't I go ahead and bring up quarterbacks? Okay. And we're only looking at the top 5 here. One, because I don't think it's a particularly deep class, but 2, after I think the first 3 or 4, it's throwing darts. So
sure.
Ward seems to be a pretty common name at the top of most rankings. There's some debate whether Sanders. Milroe is an interesting player. If you could give us some of your thoughts on Jalen Milroe and why he's ranked 3rd on your list.
I was hoping you would ask me about Jalen Milroe. Yeah. So I hook, line, and sinker after the Georgia game. All right. I was all in on this guy. I mean, he looked great. It was like week 4 of college football. Actually traded in a couple leagues for him, which might burn my ass now because, at that time I thought he could be the QB1 of the class. So he's an inconsistent passer. Okay. But man, he's got all the other skills that I think a team is going to be enamored with. And I know it looks like, the kid from Ohio State, Justin Fields, might be a miss, and Anthony Richardson might be a miss now in Indianapolis. I think they did him wrong, actually, just the whole process with that guy. But inexperienced. I mean, I wish he had stayed for another year, because he had another year of eligibility. I'd like to have seen him stayed. He's got all the tangibles they want: leadership, arm strength, the physical ability to scramble. I mean, the guy running with the football,
probably the best running quarterback right now.
Yeah. I mean, it is a menace, right? So I think a team is going to say, yeah, you can't pass the ball a lot, but man, these other skills, we got to get him in here, and just we'll take him in the middle to the late 2nd round, take a shot with the kid, and see if we can't develop him. He just needs more time. He was a true junior, who probably should have stayed a year.
And he is, I guess, considered the best running quarterback in this particular draft. I guess where the concerns, or what's holding him back in a number of rankings, is perhaps the accuracy of his throwing.
Yeah, he's inconsistent. There's no doubt about it. And he's got to clean that up. But if he could take the Jordan Love approach, right, and let him sit for 2 years, get him in there, let him get comfortable, work, get some good training and coaching, and can you develop him? I think he's worth a shot in the late 2nd and 3rd, because those other skills that he has are off the charts. I mean, they're off the charts.
And so, I think you're right. Oh, I'm sorry, Joe.
I was gonna. No, you can finish if you're still talking about Milroe. You could finish. I was gonna ask him about Jackson Dart.
No, let's talk about Jackson Dart.
So I've seen him as high as in some people's rankings at 2, and I'm seeing you got him at 4. He's usually, like, for the most part, consensus, I think 3. So if you, it seems like you're lower than consensus. So I just want to hear about that. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, his long term, he's got another accuracy issue. When he plays within scheme and the short and intermediate parts of the field, when I was watching his film, he looked pretty precise, but his long deep ball was inaccurate a lot. I mean, I know Trey Harris had a monster season before he got hurt and he was catching balls all over the place. But if you really watch all of his film, you'll see he had to make a lot of adjustments to the ball. And you have to just be concerned about the scheme a little bit. I mean, we've had other guys come out of this program with the, first read, throw the ball and stuff like that. So, I mean, he could easily be something, or he could be Kenny Pickett. And like I said at the beginning of the show, I just don't dive deep into quarterbacks. I just know Jalen Milroe from a fantasy standpoint. If he were to hit with those skills and I had to choose between Dart and him, I'm going to take those athletic rushing upside, because they're both inaccurate passers that need to be drafted and sat on the bench. I'm a big believer of guys, all of them, like Cameron Ward too. I wouldn't play him if I was Tennessee taking that kid. I'd be like, you ain't playing. I bring in a guy for a year and saying, you're going to learn how to be a pro. You're going to learn the offense, and I'm not going to ruin your career year one, satisfying a fan base. I'd be like, you're on the bench. So like Mahomes did. It's a process that works, but no teams ever have the patience to do it. Like Indianapolis, I just talked about Anthony Richardson. I think they ruined that kid. They benched him and they put him back, and now they bring in his now that's competition. You're like fucking with his head. I mean,
he's just destroying that guy.
Yeah.
Two questions, and then we're going to jump into running back. But first of all, Milroe is probably one of your players that you would say, gee, later in the draft, I'm going to take a shot. Is there any other quarterback that's, perhaps not on this list that you are attracted to, or you're waiting for next year?
Now, we all have hopefuls, right? I mean, we all think, someone, which one's the Purdy? Who's the Purdy in this draft? I don't know. If it's round 4 of my rookie draft and I don't like anybody on the board and there's like a quarterback that has good size and a good arm, I'll take him, I think. But I mean, like, this happens every year, right? This happens every year at this time, where the hype to the draft and the combine and the pro days, it leads a lot of people just rising up boards, and these guys will be overdrafted most likely.
And this might be more of a Debbie question, but are you looking at next year's draft as being, a better, draft to be able to bring in a quarterback?
I think next year, and that's another advantage of playing Debbie, is I know intimately already all of the rookies for next year. Like I could give you the top 5 probably of like the position. Yeah, I think it has the ability. The Manning kid from Texas, I'm sure he's going to play for 2 years, so he won't be eligible.
2 years. So I thought he was next.
Well, he hasn't started. He hasn't played yet in college, so I don't think he's going to play 1 year and then go to the NFL. I think he needs some time, but he certainly looks very good. But I think there could be 3 or 4 quarterbacks that we're excited about next year.
Awesome, cool. And why don't we go ahead and jump to running back? That's one a lot of people are excited about, and some of the the usual suspects up at the top of the list.
Why don't we have them talk about all of them? They're
cool. Yeah.
You want to start from 10 or we'll start from 1?
Yeah, we'll start from 1. I mean, sure, I'll give you a breakdown. I think Ashton Genty, I mean, the guy is a stud. I mean, the contact balance, the ability to make guys miss. I mean, he's the clear RB1. So there's not much to talk about with him. I mean, I think the stats speak for themselves, and he looks like a special ball player. Trevion Henderson, I have at number 2 because I like explosiveness in running backs, and he brings the physicality that I look for as well. So of everybody on the list, they got Hampton and Judkins, and Martinez, really, then at my next 3 are more of the bigger backs. But Trevion Henderson, I think, the durability is a concern, right? There's a lot of people think that he didn't have a bell cow role in Ohio State, sharing the backfield with Judkins. But, the bottom line is the guy can break it. You can take it to the house, and he's a very, very, very good pass protector. And that, I think, is going to be a feather in his cap going to the NFL draft. Keeps him on the field a little bit, and he's great out of the backfield. So catching the ball, you saw the last game of the season, broke a couple nice long runs, getting the ball out of the backfield. So if he can stay healthy and finds himself on a team that can give a good, opportunity, I think he could be he's my RB2. Marion Hampton is just that downhill physical no nonsense. I'm going to beat you up with pad level and physically, take you on. His lateral ability, is pretty decent. But again, he's going to be the guy who's been injury free for 3 seasons. He's durable. He's tough. He runs, has some decent lateral ability. Quinton Judkins and him are kind of at the same kind of spot. I think they both can catch the ball out of the backfield, both limited, I think, in the lateral movement ability. And Damian Martinez, I'm just a huge fan of. He has been one of my favorite players for a long time. I've been talking about him being undervalued in this whole draft process for a while. I think he might actually have better movement skills than Hampton and Judkins. I just don't have the guts to put him at number 3. So, nice. To be honest, I'm gonna, but he is gonna be a guy. I already got him on 2 Debbie rosters, so I already got him in 2 of my dynasty leagues because he's already sitting on my taxi squad. But a player that I'm pretty excited about. Dylan Sampson, again, SEC player, physical enough. He's surprisingly durable, has that explosion, can catch the ball out of the backfield, a smaller guy. You look at Dylan Sampson, you kind of think of Bucky Irving a little bit as far as size and his profile going to the draft. Caleb Johnson, I'm lower on than most. Just wasn't enamored with his film. I know the highlights look great when he's running all these big plays and he made a couple guys miss on some downfield plays, but man, we watched 4 or 5 all 22 film cut-ups, me and Jason, my podcast co-host, and I remember sending him a text message like, dude, I watched 5 of these games. What is the hype with this guy? He looks like he really can't navigate very well through the trenches. I just wasn't impressed, so I'm just lower on him than most. Trevor Etienne, I think, is a kind of a sleeper in this class. Love his ability, too. The guy has some great lateral ability and had some fantastic games catching the ball out of the backfield. He's Georgia tough. He's a true junior. He's been hanging around with NFL players for 3 years because his brother's in the NFL. So I think, the fact that he was a true junior and decided to go to the draft, I think tells him he was told that, you're a day 2 guy. Cam Scadaboo, again, just a physical, no nonsense, lack of athleticism to a certain degree. So I kind of see him, having a role, but not maybe a full-time leading a backfield role. And Jordan James, I think, is just another. We're getting to the point where we're running back 10. We're looking at RB2s on teams. I think we'll get 5 probably, starters out of here. But I think like after 10, it starts to drop off. I really do.
Okay. And guys like LaQuince Allen, you've seen their tape, you're not big into it, right?
I can't get into that guy at all. I have no idea why he even is in discussions. He runs very straight up. His pad level's terrible, and he just his lower half is very thin. I just watched his film and didn't see anything to think that he was going to be anything other than some flex, option at running back.
And also, you mentioned Caleb Johnson, and you mentioned kind of like some of the teams he went against or some of the defenses he went against, and comparing him with Trevor Etienne, who, went to an SEC school and was playing against SEC defenses. If those 2 guys were both on the board, would you actually take, Trevor Etienne?
Well, it depends on landing spot, I think. If I've got side by side here, it's 7 and 8, and I got a guy that I see clear opportunity for. Opportunity is so important, right?
Landing spot.
But no, I would.
Landing spot's going to juggle up the whole order, possibly.
Yeah, and of course it does all the time, right? That's but no, ETN is a guy that I think I could possibly see me taking him over Johnson. I just was not impressed with Caleb Johnson. He was at 3 years at Iowa. 2 years he didn't do nothing.
Yeah, it was 1 year. Yeah,
it was like 1 year this production, and he had a lot of wide open runs and gaps. It just padded these stats, and I'm like, after watching the film, I was like, I'm going to trust my eyes. That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay, and then we can jump to the wide receivers. I love the Travis Hunter pick. As long as he's playing wide receiver and he gets drafted to be a wide receiver, he's probably the game breaker of, and maybe even the 101 pick, right?
Well, as far as wide receiver ones, he is the only wide receiver 1, I think, in this draft. I don't think there's anybody else in this draft that is going to be a wide receiver 1 on a team. I think these are all wide receiver 2s, and the hope for in getting the landing spot is you hope that they get the spot that they have. I want these guys to have a number one receiver already there. Right. I want Matthew Golden to go to a team that already has a one, so he can come in and get opportunity as being the two. None of these guys, if they come in and they're asked to be the wide receiver one on a team, I think we're going to see a couple years for development. Do you guys remember when it was the wide receiver 3 theory? When it was the third year was always the breakout year for wide receivers. Do you remember that?
Yeah, that now it's 2 years.
It's out the window. It's like, God damn it, if I don't get production right now, I mean, we're out, right? I mean, so I think all these guys still need some more time to really maybe come to their full potential. But
do you want to run through the wide receivers just like you did with the RBs?
Luther Burden, watching his film, I know a lot of people were concerned about how he was used there. A lot of gadgets around the line of scrimmage, wide receiver screens and stuff. But again, I look at movement skills. I like his yak ability. I think he's more physical than people give him credit for. I just think he was the best space creator after Travis Hunter. And I think with the NFL, with the short passing game, and I kind of like that. The guys that are a little bit more versatile versus just a boundary X receiver like Tech McMillan is, that kind of receiver. I think the versatility Burden brings, I think, is actually a good thing when people knock him for that, because he didn't have that traditional role as a wide receiver one. Matthew Golden, he's a space creator too. I mean, he did a really good job of working the slot, the outside. I think he's got some really good movement skills. Ted McMillan, can't deny the production, but it's really hard for taller guys that are 6'4" and stuff to hit our dynasty rosters. I mean, it always seems like it's the guys that are 6'1", 6 foot, 6'1", 6'2", but these taller receivers, and he's limited with his frame, I think, to be an elite space creator. Now he wins at the with the ball skills and the length and the go up and get the ball. It's got some decent yak ability. Amika Buka, I think, is going to be a primary slot receiver in the NFL. That's where he played at Ohio State. I think he's going to be just a really good all-around wide receiver 2 on a team. Isaiah Bond, I'm pretty excited about. I mean, there's been some whispers lately of some diva off-the-field issues, which is kind of disappointing. But, right, man, I think
he just had to turn himself in, I think, just today with some sort of a legal issue. So I guess we're all going to be watching that closely.
Oh, no shit, really?
Yeah. So was it sexual?
Some sort of a sexual assault charge.
Oh, can I tell you, I had Isaiah Bond at number 16, Jalen Knoll at number 7. Again, it's just.
I mean, we don't know the truth.
Just to put it out there that it's in the news now. But, we don't know what really happened. So
what's the saying? If there's smoke, is there fire? I mean, who knows? I mean, it's
and there were other whisperings going into
that certain stuff happened with a guy named Randy Moss, and he fell to 21 to Minnesota. And
Jalen Knowles and Royals are kind of similar players. They're both really good route runners. They both have strong hands. They both can win all over the field. I like them. Jack Besh, again, is a just tough physical receiver. I could see him being a great wide receiver 3 on a team. I think of my Philadelphia Eagles. We have yet to have we don't still have a slot receiver that I think we use on a regular basis. He'd be a really good addition to a team
slot,
like Miami, maybe, that has 2 speedy guys on the outside that might want some physicality to work the inside of the field. And Jaden Higgins, again, is a bigger player as well. Kind of have a comp for him. Is he Cedric Tillman or is he Nico Collins? Good route runner. Just again, with the big frame, I struggle with these taller receivers.
And just to ask, like I did with the quarterback question, but is there anyone, perhaps not on this list that you're keeping an eye on that, might rise up either because of the draft position or, any, late round, players you'd be interested in?
Not really. I mean, Isaiah Bond was the one guy that I was most excited about because of just how explosive he was with the ball in his hands. I kind of had a comp for him as a Jalen Waddle light, right? Just somebody who's got that kind of tenacity, and you can tell he he gets up and gets in guys' face. I mean, he doesn't take shit from anyone out there. So I can see if he's got, some sort of anger problem or whatever, who knows. But he plays tough on the field. But no, there's nobody else really that I'm excited about looking at the list, like Elike O'Manor, Trey Harris. He's my number 11. But it's not a good wide receiver class. So I think that we try and make it into something that maybe it's not. So, I think landing spot for a lot of the second half from 11 to 20, it's all going to depend on the landing spot of getting on the field.
Okay, well, we can now jump, and this is probably the slide that's probably going to cause the most interest or maybe most debate. And again, a lot of draft lists have Warren at the top, or Warren and Loveland. Like that, this one's different. And so why don't you go ahead and kind of talk through, and especially if you want to spend a few more seconds on Arroyo.
Well, like I said, when I scout these players, I look for movement skills and physicality, right? So if I'm going to stay true to my beliefs of what I watch on the field, Elijah Arroyo had 500 plus something yards this year. A lot of it was padded with some breakaway plays, but man, there was at least a good handful, a dozen plays where this guy can get in and out of his breaks and his speed. He went down to the Senior Bowl and was the most impressive player in the Senior Bowl. And I know he's like probably tight end 3 or 4 for a lot of people. But I mean, the guy just looks different on the field. And so a lot of people are talking about the lack of production. He had a knee injury in 2022 that derailed his college season. It took him a year and a half to get over his knee injury. Finally was healthy last year, playing with Restrepo, playing with a lot of other wide receivers that are in the draft, Jacoby George and stuff. So just didn't have an opportunity to get his hands on the ball. But as far as movement skills and ability, again, I think people get caught up in stats and being like, well, you didn't do a whole lot. And so Colston Loveland to me, I think is a better movement than Tyler Warren. So I have Tyler Warren number 3. I know Tyler Warren is my son goes to Penn State. I watch every game. The guy is he's a beast. He can win all over the field. He's in the backfield. He's wildcat. He's throwing passes. He's a do-it-all guy. But I'm just this thing in the back of my mind is just, does he have the movement skills and the speed and burst to get away from NFL DBs? I mean, he took advantage of that in college. And so that's why I have him at number 3. And Mason Taylor, I'm a big fan of too. I think those 4 could be fantasy legitimate, tight ends for to become consistent dynasty options.
Nice. Thoughts on Harold Fannin, since his name comes up a lot as being kind of the more receiver type of tight end.
Yeah, I mean, the guy the production this year was just fantastic. Good movement skills. So he's just a little on the light side, and his competition was just not great. And again, I try to project what I see on the field. Would he make that same guy miss if that was a defensive back in the NFL? Probably not. He could hit. I kind of had that comp from the kid at Baltimore. What's his name? Isaiah Likely.
Yes.
Kind of think like he could be that kind of player for a team. Certainly versatile, but he's just a little bit on the small side, and his blocking is pretty bad. So, is he going to be like a strict slot guy, or is he going to be able to stay on the field to block and be a part of that process as well? I'm more confident in the 5 guys on top of him that they can kind of be a little bit more physical and do both.
Yeah, I saw a lot of Loveland, not this past year, but the year before, and he was a dominant tight end. So, and again, less so, perhaps changing quarterback, and but I do think that he's going to be really. And how many of these are you projecting to be drafted? Perhaps in the first round, either of the NFL draft or in fantasy drafts.
Oh, I see Tyler Warren and Loveland going in round 1 of rookie drafts all the time. I mean, it's just so everybody wants, the next Sam Laporta, right? I mean,
yes.
when you have a tight end in your dynasty league, you have an advantage when you've got a stud tight end. There's only 5 or 6 out there, right? But if you've got one, so people are willing to take shots with that. So I'll wait till the second and take Elijah Arroyo.
Well,
for me, the tight ends, it's going to really come down to landing spot. When I evaluate tight ends,
but that's for a lot of it. Yeah,
for fantasy football, I want to make sure that they're getting the right opportunity to snap share and that they're getting meaningful targets.
Yeah. So, like, if Arroyo got drafted by the Jets, I'd probably grab another beer, right? Wallow in my sorrows. So just don't go to the Jets. Anywhere but the Jets.
The Jets. And I know we were hoping to be able to spend a minute or two just on some of your thoughts on some of the Devy players that you've been targeting or you will be targeting. And
so one of the things that I offer, it's called the NFL Draft Big Boards, and it's a database with players. And I've got like players, like I said, already ranked for 2026 class. So we'll talk. We won't go too deep, right? So we'll talk about the 2026. I'll give you an overview of what I think about the classes. Looking at my big boards here, there's like 4 or 5 really good, quarterbacks. I think we're going to get maybe 3 or 4 starters. Running back, Nick Singleton's probably at the list. Jeremiah Love from Notre Dame, Quentin Joyner from Texas Tech. I'm a fan of Justice Haynes from Michigan. So the running back class overall, because I think if you don't play Devy, and the people that are listening and watching, they're probably saying, well, let me give me an overview. They don't really probably know these players because they don't maybe watch college football, but I can give you what my vision is for the class of comparing the 2026 rookie class to this class.
Because I'm one of those people, so I like
that.
Yeah.
So exactly. So if I talk about Darius Taylor, you're like, who gives a shit about Darius Taylor?
I'll be like, I gotta try to remember that name.
I'd be like writing it down. You'll forget about it by the time this time next year. But the running backs, it's not going to be like this year. So if I've got the words of wisdom to your viewers and listeners, go get your running backs. Go get your running backs this year. Okay. Wide receiver, it's always kind of early to call the wide receiver board, but there are no names like McMillan right now. There's no names like Travis Hunter right now. There's no key player like Marvin Harrison Jr. was. When you go in early into a football season and everyone already knows the top guy, the wide receiver room, there's nobody like that.
So, and everyone's looking at Jeremiah Smith for the following years, right?
That's right. So that's 2027, right? So you're going to have to wait one more year. That's a great example. But next year, so now there's some guys I like. Jordan Tyson from Arizona State, Carnell Tate, he's from Ohio State. We're going to get some decent players, but I have a feeling it's 1 or 2 will emerge, but it's very low key. And the tight end position right now it's going to be a bad class. There may be 1 or 2 guys, but I don't see anybody that can compare to Colston. Like this time last year, everybody knew who Colston was. Mm-hmm. He was the tight end 1. There was no question. Tyler Warren was the tight end 2. Like this, there's just a lot. The guy I'm most excited about is Max Clare, who's going to go to Ohio State. He transferred from Purdue. So the overall thought is that the 2026 class is just not great. That's just the way it is. I think the quarterback class right now is probably, but that would require a lot of juniors to declare. And we've seen the trend of guys staying longer now because they're getting this NIL money.
They're getting money already.
They're getting buco bucks for staying, and I think the NFL is actually wants to see them stay longer and get more experience
because less developmental time on the NFL team is.
Yeah, you want the pros. Like Bo Nix played for 5 years. He was battle tested. He went to Auburn, followed the footsteps of his father. Think of the pressure. Was SEC Freshman Player of the Year when Bo Nix was a freshman. And the next 2 years, they had no wide receivers. They fell apart. He didn't do anything. He goes to Oregon for 2 years, resurrects his career, plays 5 years, and then he is now a starter. I think what Sean Payton liked in him, he was battle tested. He failed at Auburn, had to transfer. So you kind of want somebody who's been through the adversity.
And last Debbie question, and I don't know if it's really a Debbie question, but do you look at the schools themselves and say, gee, Penn State, that's a linebacker factory, although, tight ends more recently. Ohio State, that's a wide receiver factory. Does that factor into the way you look at some of the players?
I mean, not really. I mean, if they come from big programs and better programs and I see the skills on the field watching the tape, then I'm like, okay, well, that's just a bonus, because competition matters. I think it does. Now, they probably have better offensive lines too and stuff like that because they are on better programs, but not particularly. I don't like the helmet scout really. That just more of the player itself.
Got it. I appreciate that.
So back to I wanted the 2026 class being weak, so I should have no fear in selling my future first, my 2026 first. I should be selling for a veteran player if I can. Absolutely.
That would be my advice. Absolutely. All right. Now if it's the 101 or the 103 or 4, I mean, guys always emerge, and this time next year you're going to be salivating because you think they're going to be great, right? That's what we do. So, but if it's 110 or 111, yeah, I'd consider selling that for a quality player, especially if you're in a shot to win a championship.
Yeah. Nice. All right.
Well, that's great. And again, really appreciate you going through and giving such detail. And, again, this has been really helpful for me and Joe, and I'm hoping the audience.
I definitely learned a lot. I love that. This is my favorite part about having the show. I get to, I really didn't know Brandon all that much, and now I've listened to him over the past couple of days, and now having the conversation is great.
I really appreciate the opportunity, guys. It's great.
You want to tell the audience where they can find you real quick?
Yeah, sure. I'm really not on Twitter or X. And I started Blue Sky, but I'm really not doing that either. I just spend my time on my YouTube channel, which is the NFL Draft Big Boards YouTube channel. So we do mocks, we do film breakdowns, rookie reports, all the good stuff a lot of people do. And shortly after the draft, I'll be really turning the page and starting to do a lot of 2026 content. So as soon as the draft is over, I'm going to start introducing everybody in the dynasty world to the 2026 class. Love doing that. And then I have it's called the NFL Draft Big Boards. It's a subscription service. It's $30 a year. Where I have broken down my all 22 film cut-ups. So if you love to scout players for yourself, I have a huge library of all the rookies and 3 or 4 films of each rookie, so you can study their film and watch it on yourself. And I do a lot of narrating on a lot of them as well. But I think the most things that the people enjoy with that is looking towards the future and all of the future rookies classes to get an idea of the ability to start scouting them early. So it's pretty cool. But my YouTube channel is where I spend most of my time.
Awesome. All right. Well, you can join us next Thursday at our regular time. Our guest will be Dustin Ludke, host of Bridge the Gap podcast. You can also keep an eye out for great shows on the Sports Affiliation YouTube channel. On Sundays, we have the basketball show with JR. Tuesdays, Rick has the Give Back show. Kala's great interview show on Wednesdays, and then we have us on Thursdays and Monday mock draft. We've been doing Superflex Dynasty startups just for like ADP, just to see how ADP goes. We do that on Monday nights, me and JC, and that's pretty much it. Make sure you hit the like button and subscribe for us. That helps us out.
Yes.
Anything else you want to add, Rick?
No, I appreciate it. And Brandon, really do appreciate you coming on. This has been super informative, and we'll be definitely checking out your website more now as we go forward, especially as we get close to that April draft. So we're only a couple weeks away.
I like the process. So I'm interested. I'll be checking it out. All right, that's it. Appreciate the chat and the audience, and that's it. You can take us out, JC. Thank you.